Hi, welcome back to our Psych 1 class. And this is the week after the second midterm exam. In the last week, we have had the second midterm exam for this course. And this is week 13, and we are going to continue our lecture. And in this week, we are going to talk about personality. So that is another topic that is different from cognitive psychology, that is different from developmental psychology, that is different from the biological psychology. So we are going to talk about something that is new in this course so far. And let's continue our lecture. So here is a little story that I want to share with you about very interesting cultural stuff. And you know that there are different kinds of cultures in the world. There is like more individualist cultures. There are more collectivist cultures. So I remember that I have talked about these two kinds of cultures before. So one is kind of a more like individualist cultures. So let's write down that word, individualist cultures. So in these cultures, people focus on individuals. They focus on the uniqueness of every person. They focus on their the personal needs rather than the needs of the collective, the needs of the social groups. However, there's another kind of a culture that is called collectivist cultures. So in that cultures, the styles are kind of different from the individualist cultures. In collectivist cultures, people focus on the group, focus on the needs of the social groups, focus on the similarities between people. They don't really focus on the uniqueness of every person because they don't think that the parts of the society that the people should focus on. They should focus on the conformity. They should focus on how people comply with the social norms and stuff. So that is the features of collectivist culture. And in the United States, that is the highly individualist culture. So we are living in a highly individualist culture, but really low on the collectivist culture. But in Africa, there are a lot of tribes in Africa. Those tribes are highly collectivist. The cultures there are highly collectivist, really low on individualist side. So they focus on conformity. They focus on the similarities among people. So they dress the same, they talk the same way, they don't talk about themselves. That is a basic feature of their cultures. I have watched a documentary that interviewed with those tribal people, and they just sit together on one row, and they dress the same, and they don't really talk about themselves. They don't even use the word "I." They don't use the word "I" because they think that it's not good to mention "I" blah blah blah. They always mention the groups, the tribe, and stuff. And the interviewer asked them, "What are the characteristics of some other people in this tribe?" How do you describe the interviewer asked? How do you describe your friends? Some of your friends, this person, that person, and that person, and they start to talk about their own friends. They start to describe the unique characteristics of their friends, and they cannot stop talking. So in such a collectivist culture, they can even figure out the uniqueness of every person. They can realize that every person is unique. the way to talk, the way to do things, the the styles of living or styles of everything for every person is different from each other. So why I share this story with you, because I want to say that everyone is unique. You can tell everyone has some kind of uniqueness. Everyone is different from all other people. And that kind of a uniqueness is quite stable. So you can tell this person is like this all the time, like almost, I mean, not all the time, but almost for 20 years, this person is like this. Some people are just easygoing. You can tell some people are really easygoing and they're easygoing all the time. And some people are talkative. Some people like talking to people. They like to socialize with other people. They like to go to parties and so forth. This kind of people, you must know some of them. Maybe you are this kind of person. And some people are just quiet. They don't like to talk to people a lot. They don't like to go to parties or public events. They just like stay alone. Those characteristics are quite stable, and you can tell that. And this stuff is related to the topic that we are going to learn. That is about personality. So what is personality? So personality are just the traits or the patterns and that are long-standing. So very long-standing. Those patterns and traits last a very long time. Those traits and patterns propel people to consistently think, feel, and behave in specific ways. So because of those patterns, different people think, feel, and behave in their own ways, in specific ways. And every person has a unique way to think, feel, and behave. So personality of everybody makes everyone unique. So how can we tell that person is like that? And how can we tell different persons are different? Because their ways to think, feel, and behave are always different. They have their own specific ways of thinking, feeling, and behaving. So that is personality. So we use the concept personality to describe this kind of phenomenon. And so next, let's know about some theories from some psychologists about personality, about what personality is and how personality develops. So the first theory we would like to learn about is from Freud, Sigmund Freud. So you know that Sigmund Freud is the father of psychology. So he was the first person to study people's emotional and psychological problems. And he has the perspective of a psychodynamic perspective. So he invented the way to give the treatment to the patients is called the psychoanalysis. So he has the whole theory to describe, to explain how the person is, what is the psychosocial of a psycho world or the spatial world a person is like. So in his psychodynamic perspective, there are explanations of how people develop their own personalities. And first, we need to mention that in everyone's spatial world, there are two parts. In one part, there is consciousness, and in other part, there is unconsciousness. So a lot of the brain activities are actually unconscious. There's a huge part in our brain that is totally unconscious. We are not aware of what is going on in those parts, in that part, in the unconsciousness part. In consciousness, we are aware of what we are doing, what we are thinking, how the brain is working. But in the unconsciousness part, the brain is just working in itself, and we have no idea. So Freud found that, oh, there's a lot of problems in the unconsciousness side of the mind. So we must figure out what is wrong in the unconsciousness mind. And also he had an explanation of what is self-concept, what is self. So you can see the picture on the right. There is iceberg that is partially above the ocean water and mostly under the ocean water. So the iceberg is flowing on the surface of the ocean, but most of the part of the iceberg is under the water. So that is a metaphor that describes our conscious and unconscious spatial world. So just a little part of ourself is in the consciousness, because most part of ourself is in the unconsciousness part. And when we are born, we do not have developed a mature self-concept yet. So in the chapter that we talk about self-concept, that we need to develop our self-concepts gradually when we grow up, right? But when we are born, we have something already. That is, those are the original biological drives. So when we are born, when we are infants, the infants are driven by the biological drives only. And in those biological drives, there are some characteristics. So those biological drives are really aggressive. They are not patient. Those biological drives are not patient. Those biological drives are pleasure seeking. It means that they seek the pleasure. They seek the gratification immediately. They don't want to wait. And also they are really aggressive. It means that they attack something. They attack other people. They attack other things. Why those biological drives are really aggressive? I heard an explanation that is very good, which is that because every life needs to protect itself. Every person needs to protect him or herself. So aggression, aggressive biological drives can protect themselves. So that's why we are born to be really aggressive, because we need to protect ourselves. So that part of the self is called id by Freud. So it's here, it's called id, ID. So that part of the self, it contains all kinds of biological drives that when we are born. And they don't, in it, if I should say this, like if the id is expressing itself, the person is not patient. The person wants to get the gratification or get the pleasure right away, right now, does not want to wait. However, it's not really possible or it's really realistic to get the gratification, to get the pleasure as soon as possible. Sometimes people have to wait. Sometimes people cannot behave in certain ways. Sometimes people cannot be that aggressive because there are other people as well. And there is a society that we must adjust to. We must go to the society and be a social person in the society. So during the process of growing up, children start to socialize. Children start to assimilate to the society. Children start to assimilate to the cultures in that society. So they develop other stuff that is called superego. In superego, there are social rules, there are norms, there are rules of what is wrong and what is right. So behaving in certain ways is wrong. Behaving in certain ways in that society is right. So children learn a lot of kind of knowledge and skills of how to behave appropriately in the different situations, in different social situations. They must like learn those kind of rules so that they can live well. So those social rules are internalized into their self-concept. So those social rules are originally outside of the self, but gradually into the process of internalization happens. So those external social rules become the part of the self. Yeah, so they transfer the outside social rules to the inside internal self-concept through the process of learning and socialization when children grow up. So superego gradually becomes a very important part of the self-concept. And sometimes there is a really severe conflicts between the id and the superego because id is not patient. It is very aggressive. It must get the pleasure right away. But superego tells the id, no, you must wait. You must behave properly in the social situations. So sometimes there are severe conflicts between the id and the superego. But how to resolve that conflict and how to maintain a peaceful or harmonious spiritual world. So a third part of self concept develops under this situation. So that is called ego. The ego is like the balance between the id and the superego, right? Superego is very strict. Superego tells the person to do what, this and this and that. The id does not want to obey any social rules. The id just seek the pleasure right away. And there must be some kind of balance between the id and the superego. That kind of balance is called a ego. So you can see on the picture that the superego is like there's a lot of big part in the iceberg is superego. Some part of the superego is in the consciousness, and some part of the superego is under the consciousness, is in the unconsciousness. Because we internalize a lot of the social rules that we are not even aware. We behave in certain ways. We are so used to behave in those ways. Actually, those ways are actually from superego, but we are not really aware. And we look at the ego. Ego is like a part of it is in the consciousness, and a part of it is even in the unconsciousness. And it is totally in the unconsciousness. So it is in the parts that we are not aware of, in the unconscious mind. Sometimes our lives are driven by it, but we are not aware. We do not know. We just know there's social rules and there is like self-concept. Okay, so let's go to the next slide. So here's an example on the right. There's a picture that the id will say, I want to do that right now. I just want it right now. I don't want to wait. That's what id is going to say. And the superego says it's not right to do that. It's not right. There's a rule. So ego must comes out and balance the need from id and superego and says maybe we can compromise. We can compromise. We can find a middle ground, right? So ego plays that role all the time. So these are the three concepts that are from the self-concepts of every person. That is id, superego, and ego. So why superego is called superego? Because super means above. Ego is ego. So superego means something that is above or on the ego, that is higher than the ego. So superego is like a policeman that always monitor the performance of the id, and monitor the performance of ego. When the ego is doing something wrong, and the superego comes out and correct the behaviors. And let's to look at another theory. So there is another very famous psychologist. His name is Alfred Adler. So Alfred Adler is the next generation of the psychoanalytic perspectives or psychosocial perspectives. So yeah, he is known as the new Freudian. So Freud created a branch of study human psychology, study human minds. So use the psychoanalysis to analyze how the mind is like, what the problems are. But there are some new developments in this branch. And Alfred Adler's stuff, his work is the continuum of the Freudian stuff. So he's called the new Freudian approach. So in the new Freudian approach, what is the explanation of personality? So Adler thinks that people always have the feeling that they lack the worth. They are not worthy. They lack the worth, and they don't measure up to the standards of others in the society. What does that mean? It means that there's always a feeling that people will feel that they are lower than others. They are not worthy enough. Other people are really worthy, and they themselves are not worthy. They cannot match up to others in the society. So this kind of feeling is called inferiority complex. So Adler names this phenomenon or this kind of feeling as inferiority complex. So what to do? What people do to deal with this complex, deal with this feeling? This feeling is not good. We do not feel good if we think that we are lower than other people. So what do people do to deal with this feeling? So people have the drive, have the motivation to gain the superiority. They want to measure up to the standards of others. They want the worth. They do not want the feeling of lacking the worth. So they want to come and gain the superiority. So that the people are so motivated in the society to behave well. So how to gain the superiority? Adler thinks that there are three components that people must do. Three fundamental social tasks that every person must finish. There are some really fundamental things that people need to do to gain the superiority, to get rid of the inferiority complex. The first task is the occupation task. It is about the career development. It is about the achievement in the society. It is about the work that you are doing, the jobs that you are doing. It is about like what you can do to make a contribution to the society. And the second kind of task is the societal task. It is about the making connections with other people. It is about the joining the social groups, joining the different kinds of groups in the society. That is about societal tasks. And a third kind of task is lab task. That is task that people need to build close relationships, build intimacy with other people, and have children and love the children and raise the children up. That is about the lab task. So there are three kinds of tasks that everyone must finish in their life. That this kind of three tasks are most important thing. So that is how Alfred Adler explains the development of personality, because that our personality is developed from the inferiority complex. And through the process of getting rid of inferiority complex, we finish all this kind of a social tasks, and we develop our personality. We are unique because there are different ways of finishing those social tasks. So that's all Adler's perspective of personality development. And another person, which is Erik Erikson, we have talked about this person before in developmental psychology, right? So we have talked about his psychosocial view of human development. He is also new Freudian, so he is a follower of Sigmund Freud. In his view of human development, there are 8 stages of life for every person. So in every stage, there is a main task to finish. If the person can finish that task very well in that stage, that person can go to the next stage and finish the next task. If there's not, if the person cannot finish that task very well, that person meets the crisis in that stage. And yeah, you can see the picture, the table on the right. So here, that is the table from the that chapter about the developmental psychology. You can see there are there's a recap that you can see that there are 8 stages in life. So you can see that in every stage, if people finish that task in that stage, they can have some kind of a feeling, they can have some kind of sense. And through this development of each stage, they gradually develop the personality of their own personality. And we can see that some people just lack confidence. Some people are just very have a lot of self-confidence. So probably that's the difference in the stage 4, because in stage 4, children need to develop self-confidence to have a feeling that they are able to do things. Some people can finish that task very well in stage 4. Some people cannot finish that task very well in stage 4. So that, because of that, individual differences are obvious, right? So if that person can finish that task very well, that is a self-confident person, you can see. If the person cannot finish that task in stage 4, you can see that person is a person that is not self-confident. So that is about the how personality is formed or developed through Erikson's view. And besides the Freudian or new Freudian perspectives, there are other perspectives that is totally different. I mean, like it's really different from the new Freudian perspective. That is a perspective from the Albert Bandura. So Albert Bandura is a very famous social psychologist, and he developed a theory called the social cognitive theory. That this theory can also explain how people form the personality. The social cognitive theory by Albert Bandura. Albert Bandura is currently a professor in Stanford University. So he's alive. He hasn't retired, but he's still alive. So in his theory, how the personality is developed or formed. So he believed that the personality is formed gradually through the process of learning and thinking or cognition. People do not only develop their different kinds of skills and mindsets and personality based on just the conditioning principles. So in the chapter that we learned the learning, we have learned two kinds of conditioning, right? So classical conditioning and operant conditioning. So every animal and human actually can learn based on those principles, based on those conditioning processes. But people are different. People do not only learn through conditioning principles. They are not only guided by reinforcement or punishment or the associations between two kinds of stimuli. They can learn through that ways, but they have other ways to learn, to grow. They also learn and grow through their own thinking processes, because people can proactively think about stuff. They have the logic. They can use logic. They can use logical reasoning to think about things. So they can learn through those thinking processes. People have beliefs. People have the ability to logically think and logically reason. So people also learn and grow through learning and thinking processes. And Bandura thinks that there are different kinds of elements or components that interact with each other so that the personality is formed. So there are different components in every person's learning and growing processes. So one is called the cognitive processes. That is about thinking. That is about logical reasoning. And the second one is the behavior. And the third one is the context, the environment that the people are living in. So these three parts of life, they influence each other. They interact with each other. And through these interactions, everybody's personality is formed. This kind of phenomenon is called a reciprocal determinism. That is a concept mentioned by Albert Bandura. Those components determine each other. And as a result, there is a unique personality for everybody. So for the behavioral components, the behaviors can be punished or rewarded. We know that through the principles of operant conditioning, we can learn the consequences of certain behaviors so that we can increase the frequency or decrease the frequency of certain behaviors because of rewards and punishments. Because when we want to avoid punishment, we want to get reward. And behaviors can be more or less because of the punishments or rewards. That is a behavioral component. And also in the social environment, some kind of stimuli are rewarding, some kind of a stimuli are punishing. So because we are living in certain social environments, we are heavily influenced by those rewards and the punishments in the social environment. And the third part is the cognitive processes. You can realize that the behavioral component and context components are influencing us based on the conditioning principles, but we are not only controlled by conditioning principles. We are not just the animals. We can think, we can use the thinking and cognitive processes to grow and learn. But what is in the cognitive process? There is one thing that can heavily influence our personality, heavily influence how the personality is formed, is called self-efficacy. So self-efficacy is the actually we just mentioned we mentioned that in stage 4 of Erickson's psychosocial perspective, there is self-confidence. People need to have built the feeling of self-confidence. So self-efficacy is a concept that is really similar to the self-confidence stuff that we are talking about. So what is self-efficacy? So self-efficacy is the confidence in ourselves abilities. That is the evaluation of to what degree we can successfully master that challenging task, master the, or we can successfully finish that task. You know, the things that we are doing are oftentimes challenging. So to what degree we can successfully finish that task, how successful we can be, to what degree we can succeed in those things. That is the evaluation. That is the evaluation in our cognitive processes. That is called self-efficacy. We have a evaluation, cognitive evaluation of how and to what degree we can successfully finish some kind of tasks. For example, if we are doing some kind of mathematical questions, we can have a evaluation of to what degree we can do these questions right. We can finish these questions and we can make them right. You can have an evaluation. Of course, you can choose not to have that evaluation before doing those mathematical questions, but oftentimes we have an evaluation before doing something, that to what degree we can successfully finish that task, because we need to use our resource to get things done, right? So if we cannot get things done, we don't have to involve in those tasks. If that task is too challenging, too difficult for us, we do not have to do that, right? We need to have an evaluation before doing something. So that kind of evaluation is self-efficacy. So self-efficacy influences our learning and the formation of personality. So the expression of the phenomenon that we can see is that people with low self-efficacy, they do not like difficult things. They do not like doing difficult things. They tend to avoid those tasks that are really difficult and challenging. But people with high self-efficacy, they like challenges. They like doing difficult things. Why is that? Because people with low self-efficacy, they have an evaluation. They cannot do that, so they choose not to do it, right? So if you really believe that you cannot do something well, or you cannot finish that thing, why do you evolve? Why do you even evolve? You can just give up, right? So people with low self-efficacy, they tend not to choose to do difficult things. But people with high self-efficacy, they have the confidence. They believe that they can do that thing well. So they like something that is really challenging. So that's how self-efficacy can influence our personality. You can see some people are really achievement oriented. So they like challenges. They like to gain achievements. They like to do something really difficult. They put effort in doing those things. And some people, they tend to avoid something that is difficult. They like doing something that is really easy. They do not like to gain the achievement. They do not like to involve in some processes that are really hard. So that is influence of self-efficacy on our personality. And the next question is how to gain the self-efficacy. Self-efficacy is a good thing to have, but how to build or how to increase our self-efficacy? There are 4 ways to build self-efficacy. So based on Albert Bandura's theory, social cognitive theory, there are 4 sources of self-efficacy. Actually, it's 4 places that we can build self-efficacy. The first one is called previous mastering experiences. So what is that? What is the previous mastering experiences? So that is your direct experiences of doing that thing well before. So you have done that thing well before, maybe for many times, for multiple times. Through these direct experiences, you have a memory of how you have done well in that task, right? So you have that memory. And now you are doing that again, and you can retrieve the content from the memory that, oh, I can do that well. So what is the evaluation? The evaluation is that I can do that well as well this time. So that's how you gain the self-efficacy. You have the experiences of successfully doing something well. And if that process repeats for many times, you have a lot of memory of doing that thing well. You can have higher self-efficacy in doing that thing. For example, doing mathematical questions. Calculus, for example, calculus is quite kind of a difficult in the mathematics. If you can do calculus questions well before for like 5 times, and this time you meet a question about calculus, what is your self-efficacy level? Do you have a self-efficacy to do that question right? Probably you have, because you have 5 times of doing a particular calculus question right before. You have that memory and you can have a good evaluation of your own ability in this domain, I mean. So the previous mastering experiences are really important source of self-efficacy. And Albert Bandura said that this source is most important one. That's the source that determine whether you have high self-efficacy or not. That's the most important one. So the second source of self-efficacy is called vicarious experiences. So what is vicarious? It means that some people replace you to have some kind of experiences. So you do not have the direct experiences, but some other people have done that well, and you observe that behavior. You see some others have done that well. And that's called a vicarious experience. And if others can do that well, and you might think I can do that well as well. Right? So because other people can do it, I can do it. And if that person is really similar to you, and you have a better reason to think that if that person who is really similar to me can do that well, it means that I can do that well as well. I can do that well too, because that person is really similar to me. He or she has a similar ability, similar personality, similar everything to me, and he or she does that well. I believe that I can do that well too. So that is called a vicarious experience. And the third source of self-efficacy is social persuasion. That means that other people give good reasons to me, persuade me, so that I have the self-efficacy. I do not have direct experiences. I do not have any vicarious experiences, but other people say to me that I can do it, and they give good reasons to me, and they persuade me. so that I change my belief. I change my evaluations about all my own abilities, so I can have a higher self-efficacy. So the third source is the social appreciation from other people's influences. And the last source of self-efficacy is the better emotional and physical states. There is evidence showing that when people are happy, if they're in a good emotion, they're happy, they're calm, and they're in good health. For example, they are really energetic in that day. They do not have the fatigue. They're really refresh their own body, or they just wake up early in the morning. They have very live physical state. They are in good health. Their physical body is working well. Those states, emotional and physical states, people have higher self-confidence, higher self-efficacy. But the emotional and physical states may change very quickly. And it does not really influence that much. So this source of self-efficacy is very temporary and it's not really reliable. So the most reliable source of self-efficacy is the first one, the previous mastering experiences. No matter how bad your mood is, your emotion is, no matter how bad your physical state is, if you have a lot of successful previous mastering experiences, you still have the higher self-efficacy in doing that thing, right? So the best source of self-efficacy is the first one, this one. Okay. Yeah, so these four sources of self-efficacy have some kind of implications about how we improve our self-efficacy. If you think that I need to have a better or higher self-confidence or self-efficacy in doing something, how do we increase our self-efficacy? The best way to do is to work hard, right? So to try a lot, have a lot of trials, to do that things hard, to make every effort to successfully finishing that task or successfully completing that task. That is the best source of increasing the self-efficacy. Because when you have a lot of the memories about you can successfully do that well, you can have a higher self-efficacy. And if you cannot have that, you can use the vicarious experience. You can observe others, right? So if you can find some targets who are really similar to you, you can see those targets can do that well, and you can have a belief that you can do that well. You can do that well as well. And you can probably other people can influence you. Other people can persuade you to be more self-confident. But this source is not controlled by ourselves. So the best source is to have a lot of the previous mastering experiences. And of course, maintain a good emotion and maintain a good physical state is very important to have a higher self-efficacy. Because when we are tired, when we are sad or have a bad emotion, when we are sick, we cannot have self-efficacy. So that influence is quite big sometimes. Okay, so let's go to the next thing. So we have talked about self-efficacy. Self-efficacy can influence personality. So what are another cognitive process that can influence our personality? That is called the locus of control. So locus of control is also something in the cognition, in the thinking process. Locus of control contains the beliefs about the power
the power we have over our lives. So that is about the belief that if we can control the results in the life, there are a lot of events, there are consequences or results of those life events. How can we control those results? How can we make sure that those results are happening because our own efforts? How can we control those consequences? That is kind of a evaluation, right? So that is different from self-efficacy, but it's a different kind of a belief or cognitive evaluation of about ourselves. That is called a locus of control. So there are generally two kinds of locus of control. One is called an internal locus of control. It means that the people believe that the outcomes of some kind of events are controlled by their own efforts, or those outcomes are results, direct results of people's efforts, their own efforts. That is called internal locus of control. Locus, this word basically means location. So you can understand locus as location. So locus of control means the location of control. Internal locus of control means that the control is internal. Where is the control? The control is internal. Internal, the person. The person, him or herself, controls the outcome. That is a belief, right? So that is a belief. That is called internal locus of control. And another type of locus of control that is on the other side is called external locus of control. That means that the outcomes are believed to be the results of other reasons, not the results of their own efforts, but results of other reasons, such as the situation, the chances, other people's influences, and the environment, the chance. So they think that they are not lucky. They do not have the chance. Or the situation is like this. They cannot do anything to change the outcomes. Or other people make this, not their own efforts. So the outcomes are out of control, right? By themselves. They themselves cannot control the outcomes of these events. So the locus of control is also external to themselves. So those are beliefs. Sometimes there are why something happens like that. That is very, very complex. That is very complex. A lot of the factors, reasons interact with each other and create that kind of outcome or consequence. So, but sometimes we just believe that, oh, I can control the outcomes. These outcomes are like this, the consequences are like this because of us, because of ourselves. But sometimes we believe that no matter how we put effort in it, we cannot control the outcomes. We cannot influence outcomes because the outcomes are influenced or controlled or direct results of other reasons, not ourselves. So locus of control really influence our learning and personality formation. But how? Like sometimes the people with internal locus of control, they believe that they can make a difference. They can create outcomes that they desire. So they put effort in it. They put a lot of effort in it to create the outcomes or the consequences that they desire. They are really persistent. They do not really give up. But for the people who have the external locus of control, they are really pessimistic. They are not really willing to put effort in doing something because they think that outcomes are results of other reasons. So why they put effort in it, right? So if you think that no matter how you put effort in it, outcomes are will not change. You will not put effort in it. That is influence of external locus of control. And this is the how cognitive processes can influence our personality development. So so far we have talked about the Freudian's views or new Freudian views about how personality is formed. And we have talked about how cognitive processes can influence the formation of personality. And next we can change the angle, change the perspective. We can talk about some kind of specific personality characteristics. So in a branch in psychology that study personality, they use traits to classify different kinds of a personality. So what are the traits? What is a trait? So a trait is a stable characteristic or of pattern of behaving. So personality is the consistent pattern of behaving or thinking or feeling. So a trait is a certain stable characteristic of that kind of a pattern. So a trait is just one type of pattern. And there are different kinds of traits because there are different kinds of characteristics of patterns of behavior. You can classify different kinds of traits. So there are some early effort to classify different traits. For example, Raymond Cattell, that psychologist, used to identify more than 170 traits, 171 traits. And later Raymond found that, oh, that's probably too many traits. And so Raymond tried to like classify fewer traits. So combine some traits that are really similar to one trait. So in that way, gradually the number of traits comes down to 16 traits. So later Raymond classified 16 traits that can describe every person's personality. Another example is the PSYCH work. PSYCH classified traits based on 2 dimensions. So one dimension is the stability of emotions. The other dimension is the extroversion. You can see the picture on the right. That is the classifications of traits based on PSYCH work theory. So you can see there are 2 dimensions. On the horizontal axis, that's the extroversion. On the vertical dimension, that is the stability of emotions. You can see there's a place for active. So if you think somebody is active, what is active? It means that that person is very extroverted, but that person is not really neurotic or not really stable. Yeah, that is active. And you can see here is calm here on the bottom. So what is calm? Calm is like the emotions of that person is very stable, but that person is not really apparently extroverted or introverted. So that is the characteristic of calm. So each word is a certain trait, and all these words are on these 2 dimensions. So you can describe a certain trait based on the 2 dimensions. So some traits is really high on extroverted. Some traits are really high on introverted. Some traits are really high on stable emotions, and some traits are really high on stable emotions. So that is interesting. That is interesting. I think this way to categorize
personality traits is very, very reasonable. And then later, there is very important theory that came to the world, to the society, to the psychological world. That is called the Big Five personality theory, or you can understand this Big Five personality traits. So what is Big Five personality traits? In this theory, that the traits can be categorized in 5 dimensions, not only 2 dimensions. Eysenck believe the traits can be categorized on 2 dimensions, but in Big Five personality theory, the traits can be categorized in 5 dimensions. So the first dimension is the same with Eysenck's work, extroversion. So how extrovert or introvert the person is. So what is extroversion? How to tell somebody is extrovert or introvert? So extrovert is a dimension or like a spectrum that describes the person focus on the external side of the person or internal side of the person. So for the extroverted people, they are talkative, they like to make connections with other people, they like to join the public events, they like to go to the parties, they like to hang out with others. They focus on socializing with other people. They focus on making connections with the outside world, with other people. But for the introverted people, they are different. They focus on the staying with themselves. They prefer staying alone. They like staying alone. They do not like to go to parties. They do not like to the social situations in which there are a lot of people. They do not like that kind of a situation. They like to be quiet. They like to talk less. They like to they like thinking a lot by themselves. They are thinking inside themselves, so you cannot hear them talking a lot. And they like to staying with people with a few people, like 3 or 4 people, with one person. That is what they prefer for the introverted people. So that is about extroversion, how you like making connections with other people. That is one dimension, extroversion. A second dimension is also the same with Eysenck's work. So Eysenck's work is like actually the foundation. Yeah, the foundation of the Big Five personality theory. So second dimension is called neuroticism or emotional instability. So neuroticism is the opposite of emotional stability. So highly neurotic means highly emotional unstable or unstable. Yeah, highly emotional unstable. So that's the degree to which the person's emotions are stable or unstable. So stability of, if the person's emotions are very stable, the feature is like that person is always like that. That person is always calm and happy and rarely becomes sad, rarely becomes anxious or having other kinds of emotions. Their emotions are very, very stable. They're always like, oftentimes like that. Their emotions change rarely. But some people's emotions are very unstable, means that their emotions change very quickly. Their emotions fluctuate very quickly. And 1 second, that person is happy, and next second, that person is sad, suddenly. And that is very unstable person, emotionally unstable person. Yeah, so you can see some people who is very neurotic,
It means that that person's emotions is very, very unstable. The person's emotions is changing too much, too frequently, too quickly. That is about the second dimension. This third dimension that is called agreeableness. So agreeableness, that is the degree to which the person tends to agree with others, tends to be corroborative, tends to be trustworthy, tends to be apathetic, tends to say yes to other people. That is the dimension of agreeableness. If a person is highly agreeable, that person shows a lot of empathy to others, is very easygoing, is very like cooperating with others, is very trustable or trustworthy, like to say yes, like to agree with others. If a person that is really low on agreeableness, that person does not like show empathy to others, does not like to say yes, they like to say no. They like to talk about some problems of other people, does not like to cooperate with other people because they think that other people have a lot of problems. The next one, the fourth dimension is called conscientiousness. So that's the degree to which the person is very organized, focused on the details. That person is very disciplined and goal-driven, is very neat, organized, make everything very organized and disciplined. So that is about conscientiousness. You can know some people can make everything very organized. The desk of that person is very neat and very clean, very organized. Everything is put in the right place. And you can see some people are very unorganized, very low on conscientiousness. Those people don't really clean their desk. They make everything in a mess. Everything is messy. The clothes are messy and their things are messy. The things they have done are messy. So those people are really low on conscientiousness. And the last dimension that we can talk about is openness to experiences. So that is the degree to which the person is open to new stuff, new experiences. Some people are really open to new stuff. They like to enjoy the new adventures. They like to try something new. They like to eat something that is new, and they like to try on something that is new. They like to go to new places, to know new person, to make new friends. And those kind of people are really highly on openness to express. They are open to new stuff. But some people are really low on openness to expresses. They are really conservative. They are really they do not like new stuff. They like the old stuff, traditional stuff. They like to use the old ways to do things. They do not like to try new things. They do not like going to new places. So this is openness to experiences. So how do you describe somebody's personality based on the Big Five personality theory? So in this theory, everyone is somewhere midway along the continuum of each dimension. So on each dimension, there is a continuum. There is a axis, right? You can imagine there is axis for each dimension. Everyone is somewhere at some point on every axis. There are 5 axes in total, and everyone is somewhere on some point
on each axis. There are 5 points in total. Yeah, so, and there is a really good way to memorize the 5 traits. If you think, oh, these 5 traits are really difficult to memorize, there is a mnemonic device for you to use to memorize the 5 traits. So the 5, if you look at the first letter of each word, you can see these 5 letters, the first letter of the 5 words. You get the first letter of 5 words. You put the 5 letters together, you can find there is a word. It's called ocean. So you can see O is openness to experiences. C is conscientiousness. E is extroversion. A is agreeableness. N is neuroticism. So if you put these 5 letters in this way, OCEAN, that is called ocean. So in ocean, there are 5 personality traits, big 5 personality traits. That is a good way to memorize these 5 traits. So you can see extroversion, that's the traits that we talk about the first. So if the extroversion is high, people are ongoing, warm, and they like to have adventures. And if the person is low on extroversion, that person is quiet, reserved, and withdrawn. And the second one is like neuroticism. If the person is high on the neuroticism, that person is oftentimes anxious, unhappy, and they tend to have a lot of negative emotions because their emotions fluctuate too quickly, and they have a lot of emotions. Oftentimes, those emotions are negative. If the person are low on neuroticism, that person is calm and even tempered, means that does not have a lot of fluctuations in the emotions. The third one is conscientiousness. Person who is high on conscientiousness, organized, focused, so focus on details, dependable, hardworking. But the person who is low on conscientiousness, disorganized, person is careless, does not pay attention to a lot of details, is very impulsive, does not really organize things well. And the next one is agreeableness. The person who is high on agreeableness, that person is trustworthy, empathetic, helpful. The person who is low on agreeableness, that person is tends not to cooperative. Is very suspicious of other people. Is very critical. Is very critical to others. Is strict to others. And then last one is openness to new experiences. The person who is high on openness, that person is curious because he or she is very open to new stuff. Have a lot of interests is very independent. If the person is low on openness, that person is very conventional, prefers the traditional stuff, prefer the routine stuff. Yeah, so for this week, there is extra credit assignment I will talk about later. In that assignment, you can take a personality survey. You can answer some questions and you can get the scores on each dimension of the 5 personality traits. And yeah, you can do that extra credit assignment. That is very interesting because that helps you to understand yourself. So for myself, I'm a person who is very low on extroversion because I'm an introverted person. And for neuroticism, very high because I'm really emotionally unstable. And next one, conscientiousness. I'm really low on conscientiousness because I'm not really organized, focus on detail. Agreeableness, that is in the middle, I think. I'm not really agreeable or not really non-agreeable. So I'm like in the middle on this continuum, on this dimension. And the openness to new experiences, I'm really relatively high on this dimension. So I'm open to new stuff, new experiences. So I'm a basically person who is introverted, highly neurotic, disorganized person, and I'm open to new experiences, like new stuff. So that's who I am. So that's basically these 5 dimensions, these 5 personality traits basically cover what I'm like. Okay, so let's go to next topic. So there are some cultural differences in big 5 personality traits. So for example, in some cultures in Asia, some Asian cultures, people tend to be less extroverted. They are not that extroverted. They are kind of introverted. For sure that in one society, in one culture, there are a lot of people who are extroverted. There are a lot of people who are introverted. There are some people who are highly extroverted. Like you can think that person is too extroverted. You can see some people are too introverted. There is a arrangement of those different positions on this extroversion dimension for everyone. But generally speaking, on average, people in Asian cultures seem to be less extroverted compared to the people in other cultures. And another example is that like in South American or Central American cultures, in Latin American cultures, people tend to be more open to new experiences. So they get relatively higher scores on the openness to experiences dimension for Latin American people. For sure that the people in those cultures, a lot of them are low on open to experiences, but on average, in general, people tend to be more higher on the openness to new experiences dimension. And another example is that the people in Europe tend to be higher on neuroticism. That they are relatively, on average, more emotional unstable. That is interesting, I think. Actually, there are some other kinds of differences in big 5 personality traits. For example, the gender differences and the age differences. So those content is not covered in this lecture, but I would like to share with you. So in general, young women or more neurotic are higher on neuroticism compared to the young men. So young females are higher on neuroticism compared to young males. And for older females, their neuroticism level gets lower. So it means that when females get older and older, or they grow up, their neuroticism scores decrease. So when in the later adulthood, the females are not that neurotic. Their scores are the same with the males in the same life stage. So if I draw a
figure is like that. So that is age. On the y-axis, that is the level of neuroticism. So for men, it's like they do not have the change. They do not have the age differences on neuroticism. So their neuroticism level are relatively low all the time. It's like this. That's for male. For example, that is 20. That is 60. So just a rough, really rough graph. But for females, when females are young, their neuroticism scores are relatively high, but not that high, a little bit higher than males in the same age. So they're like this, and gradually their scores get lower. So when they are above 60 years old, their neuroticism scores for females are the same with the scores of males and the same age. That is a female. So it's like this. That is about neuroticism. And the actual version, there are no apparent age or gender differences on actual version. It means that whether a person is extroverted or not depend on gender or age. For agreeableness, for both males and males, agreeableness scores gets higher when people get older. It means that older people are more agreeable. They're more like empathic. They're more empathic. They are more likely to say yes. They tend to like agree with others. So older people are more agreeable than younger people. For other dimensions, there are no apparent age or gender differences. Yeah, that is interesting knowledge that we can know of. Okay, so next we can go to next topic. So next question is how to know about our personality, how to assess every person's personality. There are different instruments, or there are different questionnaire or instruments or surveys or tools to assess a person's personality. So the mostly widely used inventory or tool or assessment tool is called the Minnesota Multi-PSYCH Personality Inventory. For short, it's called MMPI. So MMPI is mostly widely used self-report questionnaire to assess the personality. And then the model used in this assessment tool is kind of different from the Big Five personality theory, but it's really similar to Big Five theory. Because our personalities, those features are, those characteristics are generally like this: extroversion, neuroticism, agreeableness. Basically, no matter how in what ways you categorize those personality traits, they are generally like that. So Minnesota Multi-PSYCH Personality Inventory is most widely used one. And the second one is called the Revised Neo Personality Inventory, or in short, it's called a Neo PIR. So it's there is an original form of Neo personality inventory, but there is a revised one. So that's the assessment tool based on the Big Five personality theory. And there is another one, it's called Big Five inventory, or BI5. You can see that is a assessment tool that is totally based on the Big Five personality theory. So there are other tools or assessments that we can use to know about our personality, but these three are very important ones, or most widely used ones that we can see in this work.
So there is a extra credit assignment for this week. You can take a survey to assess your own Big 5 personality traits. You can find assignments on Canvas. So right now I can show you where to find the assignments on Canvas. So let's look at the browser, and you can log into Canvas and find our course. Psych 1-1HA96. You can go to assignments here. Go to assignments. There are a lot of assignments like quizzes and midterm exams and so forth. And you scroll down. Yeah, you can find the upcoming assignments. There is an extra credit assignment that is called Take a Survey to Assess Your Own Personality. You can go to this assignment. So here's a link that you can go to. You can open this link and start to take the survey. In that survey, it is assessments of your own personality traits. And when you finish this assignment, when you finish this test or survey, you need to upload the screenshot of the final web page to you that you can see, and upload that screenshot to Canvas. So this extra credit assignment accounts for like 0.5% of the total score. So that's 1 point. That's 1 point. So you can just open this link and take that survey. After finish that survey, do not open that page yet. You can take the screenshot of that page, upload that page to Canvas so I can see it. I know that you have finished this assignment. I can give you a credit. Yeah, that's how you have done this assignment. Okay, so there are some things to know for this week. And you need to know the meaning of some kind of concepts. For example, you need to know what the 3 concepts in Freudian perspective. For example, it, superego, and ego. And also you need to know what is inferiority complex. So that is the concept in Alfred Adler's perspective. And next, you need to know what self-efficacy is, know the meaning of self-efficacy, and you need to know about the 4 sources of self-efficacy. And next, you need to know the meaning of locus of control. And the next, you need to know about the traits, the 5 traits in the Big 5 personality theory. So there's extroversion, neuroticism, agreeableness, conscientiousness, openness to experiences. Yeah, that's all the stuff that you need to know about this week. And thank you very much for watching this lecture video for this week, and see you next week. Bye-bye.